weighs 21 grams. So then how much of that is fueled by creativity? How much weight do the elements that comprise this creativity hold? This is the show that welcomes those questions, and luckily we have the guests to answer them here today. Welcome to 21 Grams. Hello everybody, yes, it's the season premiere 21 Grams. I am really excited to have my first guest here. I asked her about a month ago to do this. I think we both forgot at some point. But
at some point, yeah.
But thank you to everybody for being here, and thank you to AJ for being here as well. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, AJ, to everybody so that they know who you are.
Hi, everybody. I'm AJ Mullican. I write dystopian sci-fi, paranormal romance, reverse harem, rom-com, a lot of stuff. I got a little bit of it back behind me here, and I like to just keep going. I like to keep working on it because it's something that that I really enjoy.
Nice. So, I mean, we're gonna tackle, because I know you, and we've had conversations before about this, and it's kind of interesting how you came about to kind of be a little bit more successful in this industry, because you found kind of this nice little pocket for genre and writing genre fiction in some respects. And so I hope we talked about it a little bit off air about talking about genre and stuff like that. So I've got some great questions about genre, and we can talk about examples and things like that with what you write. So my first question would be, when did you start thinking about genre? Has that always been something you thought about, or was that something that came about in marketing? When is it for you that you think about it?
I started out with, my first book was a paranormal, a supernatural thriller. It wasn't really a romance. There was a side romance in it, but it wasn't a romance. It was just a very dark, very graphic book. Didn't really have a pigeonholed genre for it other than supernatural thriller at the time. And then the second book, I kind of came up with the concept of, oh, hey, what if such and such happened and the future turned out this way? What would that be like? And so it came into kind of a dystopian sci-fi thing. I really enjoy reading dystopia and dystopian sci-fi. So I kind of played with that a little bit on like what my vision of the future might be if certain things came to pass. And then my publisher for those books came to me and said she wanted to do a co-write on a list aiming set. So list aiming sets, a little shortness of it is basically a bunch of authors get together, they write a certain theme, genre, whatever, and they try to get enough sales to hit the USA Today bestseller list to get that oh so important title. We did it, but it was a reverse harem, paranormal reverse harem genre, which I made it work with the setting of my dystopian sci-fi, but it got me moved over into the paranormal reverse harem genre, and it's kind of where I've been stuck for a while. Not stuck, but it's where I've comfortably rested.
I'm curious, what has been the biggest misconception you've had to overcome when you're telling people about the reverse harem genre? Because that seems like one of those that has probably some stigmas attached to it a little bit.
There are stigmas. I don't always tell everyone exactly what type of paranormal romance I write. I have a surgeon that I work for in my day job who is a very straight-laced kind of guy. And when I was just talking in the break room about how I was, made the USA Today list, he's like, "Oh, what genre?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap, paranormal romance." And I kind of left it at that. He wasn't interested, so he didn't poke further. But some people, I'll tell them, and they kind of give me this kind of sideways, like, And some people are like, oh, really? What's it like? And then some people will just buy whatever, either because they're friends and they're supportive, or they've read what I write and liked it so far and want to get the next book. Some people will buy whatever and they're like, yeah, this is not something you share with your kids, but I like it, you know? So it just depends on the person, really, how far I will go into detail about what exactly it is I write, mostly because I don't want to skeeve anybody out with something they're not comfortable with.
Mhm.
If I think someone's not going to be comfortable with what I write, I'm going to tell them you might not want to buy that book.
What element would you say you tailor most toward the genre? Is it the characters, the setting, the themes? What would you say in your writing style when you're trying to write toward a specific genre? Where do you start? What element do you start with for the?
I start with concept and setting. And then I kind of go from there, build the characters off of what the concept I'm working with is. Like with the dystopian sci-fi, the abnormal series, I kind of built with characters that I felt had grown up in the setting that I devised, this future setting where certain things have come to pass and the world is a different, very, very different world than it is now. With the paranormal romance, I kind of go with the setting of, okay, I'm going to make these rules for what's my paranormal world is going to be like, and then kind of throw the characters in there and see how they interact with the setting and each other. A lot of it is character interaction, especially with the reverse harem, because you do have to be able to write different personalities in the same, same circle. You can't just have all the guys be like cookie cutter alpha males, like, and they're all the same, because it's boring. It's like, which dude am I reading about here? I don't know, whatever, and I like to think that I'm able to do it so where you can tell which guy it is talking, or that the female is interacting with, based on how they act, talk, think, whatever, because they are all each individual people. They're not, cookie cutter, all the same dude lined up and she's just got a bunch of them hanging out with her. That's not fun.
Did you read any books in the genre before you started to write in any genre?
Not in the reverse harem. I actually had to Google what reverse harem was before I started writing it, because, like I said, my publisher, Mandy Mellinson, had wanted to do a co-write with me, and so I was like, okay, sure. Let me find out what this is I'm writing. And so I Googled it and found out what it was and dove right in. It was kind of funny in that way because I kind of stuck with it since. But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of reading of dystopian sci-fi and paranormal romance anyway, but until I had found out what reverse harem was, I had not read any of it. I've written I think 2.5, 3 books before I started reading reverse harems and getting into actually dig reading this for fun, as opposed to, just reading up on it, researching the genre for practical purposes. It's more like, oh, this is actually fun to read. So, I've read Den of Vipers. I've read Maya Nicole's Arbor Falls books. I'm almost finished with those, actually. I've read a lot of them, and I'm really digging the vibe, and really enjoying getting into these different worlds of the different characters and the way they interact with each other and with the main character and everything.
It's really a character-driven genre.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
absolutely.
Especially the reverse harem one. Obviously, that's if you don't have the love interests in that, it's kind of hard to have a harem, right?
Right.
Do you think being indie helped or hurt you in with the genre audiences, or do you think it mattered at all?
I think with the dystopian sci-fi, it's probably hindered me some because I went into it not knowing thing one about how it worked. I thought that the day the pre-order launched was the launch date, and I threw a big old party at my house with all my friends, and then I found out, oh, you can't actually have the book that day. I didn't know. I had no idea how any of this worked. I'm still kind of blindly going through it in some bits and pieces, but it's getting there. I attribute most of my shortcomings as an indie author to my own lack of a budget for marketing and lack of marketing talent or skill. The one book that I have that's done the best has been one that I've put up for free a couple times. Amazon KDP lets you put things up for free for a few days, every quarter, just to kind of promotional stuff. And that one's gotten up to 47 reviews. It's almost hit the magic 50 review mark on Amazon. And it's got a lot of, there's good and bad. There's always gonna be people like, oh, I was disappointed with this book. It was odd. I'm like, paranormal romance. Yeah, it's odd. But
what book was that? Which one was it?
Packed with the Pack.
Okay. So the first book in the series.
Right. Yeah. And the first one that actually came out that I did paranormal romance and the reverse harem, the one that I did the co-write with Mandy Mellinson, it ended up releasing later because there was a year-long pre-order so that we could get more pre-orders and make the USA Today list. But Pack with the Pack, I kind of like shoved it out there. I had kind of a longish pre-order for me, but I kind of shoved it out there and just let it into the world. And it's kind of like, I mean, it does pretty well, I think. I actually had someone just the other day who was another author. She was in a group for a release, a takeover that we were doing for a release of mine. And she actually said that when she realized I was the author of Pack with the Pack, she got like fangirly. I was like, what? I'm like, nobody fangirls over me. What? So that kind of made me like all geeked out and everything, because I was like, wow, somebody actually said they're fangirling because they met me, online. That's so cool. Like that doesn't happen, to indies as often as it does to the big name authors,
That is awesome. You have had, like you were saying with the Pack, and then you have a publisher that's really into marketing, has a degree in marketing, so she helps set you guys on a good path there. So I'm curious, is your approach to your marketing plan when you sit down and you decide about it, is it based more on genre than the story, or is it always about the story first for you?
My approach is kind of piecemeal about what I've seen other authors do and trying to imitate what they do, things that I've seen work for other people. I am, sorry, I'm like bunch on the table. Again, I'm not great at marketing. I myself am not the one with the marketing degree. I don't, my degree is in criminal justice administration. It has nothing to do with any of this back here, I could none of it. But I guess it has to do with the one thriller. Anyway, but I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. I kind of like blindly am like going out there. If I see someone requesting in one of the reverse harem groups, hey, I'd like a book with X, Y, and Z in it, and I have a book that has X, Y, and Z in it, I'll post. I'll say, hey, it's a self-recommendation. I think you might like this book here. If you do, check out my other stuff. If not, no big deal. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so it's not like it's going to break the bank if you try and check the book out, things like that. I do get a lot of Kindle Unlimited reads. Last month, I had more reads than I'd had cumulative almost since. I mean, it was a huge month for me last month. Again, partly because I had that book up for free. It was my birthday, and I was like, well, I'm going to put Packed up for free for a few days for my birthday, and got like 200 some units sold for free that day or that week. So that was kind of cool.
That's interesting. Do you feel like genre? Okay, so marketing-wise, it may not dictate a lot, but do you feel like genre dictates if you're going to write it in a series or not? Do you feel like if you know what the genre is, you're gonna figure out that it's going to be a series, or is that more story too that leads you toward that?
I tend to get more series related ideas in the genres that I write. I do have a rom-com that's a reader magnet that you can get for free, signing up for my newsletter. That's just, it's something I never planned on adding more to it. Wrote it just for one thing, and that was done with it. The first book I ever wrote, Whispers of Death, is just a solo standalone. People wanted to find out what happened to one of the characters afterwards, but I didn't have the story, so I didn't write any more about it. And I've made that into Reader Magnet as well. You can actually, if you go to my website, you can find the Whispers of Death, and it's actually free for signing up for my newsletter. You can just get it. It's my first novel, and it wasn't selling on Amazon because I wasn't marketing it, because I don't know how to market it, because I'm like, I don't know what people want for supernatural thrillers, so I just like have it. I'm not doing that for every book, but I did it for that one.
Is there specific challenges when it comes to the genre, like reverse harem or any other genre you've written in, that you want to take on that you haven't yet, that you've looked at and gone, it just didn't fit this story, maybe, or that you'd like to write a story with a specific challenge in mind?
I'm trying to work more towards reader-oriented writing. Looking at what people are asking for in the groups, what people are wanting to read, and then trying to write that direction. So far, I've been writing what I want to read. I'm like, well, I like this trope, or I like this kind of story. I want to read this, so I'll write it because, whatever, at least I know it'll turn out good and I'll like it because I'm the one who wrote it. But I'm trying to now kind of mold what I'm writing into what the readers are wanting to see. I won't go with every trope the readers want. I'm not into bully. Bully's a big thing. I don't dig it. Academy skeeves me out. I hear the word academy and I think like high school. And I think like these kids, like, what are they doing? I know that a lot of the academy books are like college age and whatever, but my brain cannot hear the word academy and think college age. Because I grew up here in the States. We call them universities. We call them colleges. We don't call them academies. And so, like, to me, that just really it's a word association. I hear it and I think kids and I think ew. Like, I don't write kids-oriented stuff.
Yeah, I think X-Men or Harry Potter or something like that. That's what I think of when.
Well, but Harry Potter was kids too, though.
Yeah.
They were all under 18 for the most part, and then it's like, I don't want to read about a reverse harem where the girl's like hooking up with all these guys and she's like 16. Ew. Yuck. That skeeves me out. If that's your deal, okay. You can read that. I won't write it, but you can read it. Right. So, but like, everyone's got their thing, whatever, but I'm not going to write that. I'm not going to write bully because I was bullied mercilessly growing up. I wasn't bullied like physically, but I was like teased and made fun of my whole life. I don't want to write about that. I don't want to write about some character getting bullied. That's not fun. Yeah. So I won't write that.
Jamie said academy is an odd word, but he does have his kid side. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that too, I guess, having your kid side. But it's still, you don't have to use academy in doing that.
Right, and then again, there are those who use academy and they mean college or university. That would be the only way I would go about it, is if I would call it a university book, and even then, I don't think I could call it academy in the title because it would just my own personal weirdness with that word, I wouldn't be able to. But like I know some people dig the bully trope, some people dig the rejected mate trope. I don't know how I could do those. Those are ones that for personal reasons I wouldn't enjoy writing it, so I'm not going to. But enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, other tropes I'll go into and kind of like investigate those and work with those and see what I can come out with those that people would like to read.
What's a trope that you've embraced in your current writing? It's more like the alpha male and the it's not, my books aren't really omega verse, but especially the shifter books have a lot of the alpha, beta, omega dynamic in them. I wouldn't call them omega verse because it's not really where I was going with those. That's not the atmosphere I created. But I do put a lot of that kind of the dynamics between the characters in there. I've done fated mates. I've done what is that?
There's a lot of different fated mates is where like destined to be together.
Oh, okay.
Soulmates kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we do have a question from our audience, and it says, JD Estrada asked, "Do you include hometown Easter eggs?"
On occasion, I will, but not very often. I don't usually write about the places I grew up, although my next series that's coming out next year will be taking place in the Southwest, which is where I live now. I tend to just make up a place or use a place. Like my first book was set in Chicago. I either research the place or I make up a place and just put random facts about it. And I'll put little Easter eggs that have no meaning because they're just I made up the place, whatever. But I will probably be throwing more Easter eggs into this next series because it will be an area that I live in now and have lived in for over 10 years now.
I mean, you were saying you kind of live in the mountains, and the pack is kind of in the mountains a little bit. They have some.
Yeah, but it's more this is the the west side of the country. That's more over in the eastern mountains. Yeah, but yeah, and I grew up in the Tennessee Valley around Huntsville, Alabama, and like there's kudzu all over the place. And I didn't know kudzu was a foreign thing to a lot of like Westerners until my husband came out there. He's like, "What is this stuff on the side of the road?" I'm like, "Dude, that's kudzu. Don't tell me you've never seen kudzu." And he's like Googling it to find out what it was. And so like I'll throw it in if they're of that region, I'll throw it in there. Like yeah, there's kudzu everywhere because it's everywhere. That stuff like you can't kill it.
I'm curious, do you feel like there's something to be said for embracing a genre's quirks and ideas rather than subverting them, or are you someone who just really loves the challenge of finding a new way to tell the story within the genre?
I'm not one to turn a genre on its heels just yet. Maybe later on I will, but I'm not one to turn a genre on its heels just yet. I like embracing the genre and kind of like going for the whole comfort food of the genre that makes you feel good reading it. So that kind of thing.
Nice. So we got another question. JD asked, "Do you have a word count in mind when you start a project?"
I do. I use Story Origins word goal tracker like obsessively. It helps me get my beats because I'm more of a plantster than a planner. I kind of like figure out in general what I want to happen, and then I just onto the page. But I just start with a blank Word document, and I plug in however many words, whether it's novella, novel, whatever I'm working on, my general word count that I want to go for, minimum. Plug that in with the amount of time I have to work on it, and then panic as the deadline gets closer, and that number of words per day goes up because I'm not keeping up with it. One of my books, Dealing with Demons, I actually wrote the last, I think 20% of the book in a day. I had like an 12K day where I just like pounded out the end of that book, and I loved it. I had a great time. I was manic as all get out, but I got it done, like at the wire. But that's what I do. I use the word count guide, and it tells me, okay, I'm at about 30%. So I know at about 30%, that's when you have your first, big thing that happens, things get heated. I'm like, okay, I'm at 60, 70%. Okay, now it's time for like the next big thing to happen before it winds down. I can use that to get my beats because I'm not good at outlining and saying, okay, this beat is going to be in this chapter and this is going to be in this chapter. I can't do that. That's not how my brain operates. I have to kind of just put the words on the page and go and let it take me where it takes me. Sometimes that actually works with the general idea of an outline I have, and sometimes it goes way left field, and I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't what I planned, but as long as it works out in the end, I guess.
When you look at your story structures, are you more apt to change a character to fit the story, or is it tailoring the story to fit the character usually for you?
A lot of my stories are really character driven. So a lot of it goes by what the character would do, and that's what the story ends up happening. Like, what would this character react? How would this character react to X, Y, Z happening? And then when it happens, then I take the character's reaction, and that moves the story forward. I don't generally try to tailor my characters to my stories. I mean, I'll have an idea for the characters that I want, the main characters, and then I'll kind of like throw in side characters I feel would work with them or interact with them well and things like that. Villains, you want to throw in someone who's going to be, give the person a challenge and not someone who they're just going to think and they're gone, you don't want that because that's boring. So that's kind of what I like to try to do is just go with the characters, the meat of the personal interactions, and then let that drive the story, how it's going to go.
What's an average size of your books? You have some small ones, you have a couple big ones. What do you feel like your comfort zone is when you're writing? What is your...
I aim for around 50K, just your small novel. average. I try not to go under that if it's a novel. If it's a novella, I'll aim for like 20K ish. There's a little more flex there because sometimes I go a little over, sometimes I go a little under. I'm trying to get to writing bigger novels, but it's just I don't know, my stories kind of just come to the culmination and they're done. And it's like, well, I guess I'm just not writing the biggest novel I thought I was going to write. So, but that's okay. Not everyone wants to read a really huge, thick book. And some people don't mind the smaller books. And that's what I enjoy writing. So.
Is that pretty standard for that genre too? Do you look at that too and kind of
They can be massive.
Really?
Oh yeah, you should see a copy of Den of Vipers or some of the other books that are out there in the RH genre. They can be huge. There are people writing like 120,000 word books out there for it. So it's not just just smut and fluff. It's actually like they get really deep into it. It's just that's not how I write. So I don't tend to write the longer. I'd rather break it up into shorter, like a trilogy of shorter books than this big, huge, massive thing.
Are you finding though, like, as someone who has, you're into double digits now with your books in terms of published, and I'm kind of curious if you're finding like you have a rhythm, you have a pattern, you have a comfort zone that you feel when you're like you sit down and when X, Y, and Z is going to happen, or are you still kind of figuring that out? And does the genre make that dependent upon what you're trying to do?
I have noticed that as I get more published and write more, my process is faster. I tend to be able. The reason I have published so many is because I'm able to produce more than I used to. Part of that is my weird like early AM insomnia that I have, where I wake up like 12:30 to 2:30 in the morning. I can't get back to sleep, so I was like, well, I'll write because it's not time for work yet. Otherwise, I'll be bored out of my skull. So I just go into the worlds and visit them in the mornings, and then I'm not bugging my husband writing when we're trying to like hang out together and stuff, So it's not probably the healthiest thing. But I have had doctors say, if your body wakes up then and can't stay asleep, you're just done sleeping.
Yeah. So I feel that too. That's you and I have had conversations that early in the morning before, so I know. But yeah, it's just this weird thing when you're awake. Well, I don't like to go back to sleep when I'm awake, so it's kind of just this weird thing for me. But
then you feel like drunk because like you took a nap and you're like, what day is it? I woke up on you don't know. Yeah, it's just easier to stay up and just do something, and that way I get a lot. I mean, I enjoy my little quiet writing time in the morning, listening to music and stuff. Mm-hmm. Do I enjoy being sleep deprived like 90% of the time? Not necessarily, but I mean, I generally feel like I'm done sleeping when I get up. Yeah, it's not like it, it's just, no, it's great.
I was just going to ask, are you a napper? Are you someone who likes to nap?
I am, but I don't get much opportunity to nap during the week because when I go to work, I'm there till 4:30, get off, come home, and get home around 5. My husband's cooking dinner. We watch TV together. And then I'm trying to stay up later so I can sleep later. It's not helping. But basically 8, 9 o'clock, I go to bed, and then, next day do the whole thing over again. Like when dinner comes at 5:30 or 6, it's like you're not really, there's no time to nap before bed. It's bedtime.
Right. All right. So we're closing in on the half hour here. So you ready to do a little rapid fire?
All right.
I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions at you. Just 1 or 2 quick answers, and we'll go through as many as we can. And we'll probably go through all of them since we've got plenty of time. But if you're ready, I'm ready. You ready?
All right, let's go.
Favorite moment written that suited the genre you're writing in?
That would probably be, that's a spoiler.
Okay, so we'll pass on that one.
Okay.
Favorite character you created that fit the genre best?
I like the character of Cherry in Pact with the Pack and Hell's Hunters. She's a lot of fun to write and talk and talk through her.
hardest character you've had to get in line with one of your stories?
Probably the Fae harem in Fed by the Fae and Hell's Rejects, because they were foreign to me as well.
Character you'd like to write in another genre?
Oh, that's a toughie. Probably Elena or Lena from Dealing with Demons, because she's just a blast to write.
Toughest genre you've tried?
Oh wow, that would probably be the rom-com, because I'm just not a nice person like characters.
Genre you think you would really be good at writing in that you haven't done yet?
That I haven't done yet, huh? I'm not sure, because I tried all the ones I enjoy.
Okay, so that then you just answered my next question, which is genre you want to try. Is there no one out there?
I'm doing an MM story right now, which is male romance, male romance. I'm doing that right now for a novella that's coming out in December, and I'm having fun with that.
That's cool. Genre you'd never want to try?
Anything kids. I can't do it. I can't censor myself to that degree.
Favorite setting you've ever created?
Oh, that's a toss-up between the Abnormal Verse and the Nowhere, North Carolina stories, because both of those, I really enjoy world building on those.
Book that came out of your head the fastest?
Fastest was probably Dealing with Demons, because like I said, I churned out a fifth of it in like a day.
Do you prefer series or standalones to write?
Series, but short ones like trilogies, not like long, drawn out.
In the end, would you say knowing your genre is the most important marketing tool you can have?
Yeah, I need to do that more.
And boom, 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 rapid firing. All right, that was great. I have 4 more questions for you, but I want to give you an opportunity while we have a little bit of a break here in between questions. Kind of tell everybody a little bit about what you've written. So give some people some overview of the things you've written, and give them kind of a, you don't have to like read verbatim the blurbs or anything like that, but just
but I got them right there. No. No. So the Abnormal Verse is my dystopian sci-fi series. It's got currently 2 books and a novella out, and a short story that you can get through my website. A couple of short stories you can get through my website by signing up for my newsletter. It's set in a future where humans have developed genetic gifts, but the ones who are on the poorer end of the monetary spectrum have been labeled as abnormals by the upper class, and so they're being sought out, and basically it's not genocide as much as it is like killing them because they don't have enough money to be part of the elite. So they don't want them to rise up and gain power and overthrow the elite, so they're killing off, via forced abortions and things like that, the lower classes who have the powers. So that one, it's a lot darker than the reverse harem ones, obviously. The reverse harem ones are fun because they're paranormal romance. They're set in a small town in North Carolina. Most of them are set in a small town. And they're just fun little books that you can read and enjoy reading about different character interactions, people who are, having a hard time of it, and then they meet their fated mates, their harem, whatever you want to call it, and they end up having a much better life once they meet the people who really care about them.
Awesome. I'm curious. Do you feel like the audience helps define genre more than the writer does, or do you feel like the writer dictates that and the audience comes along with it?
That's kind of a chicken and egg kind of question there. I mean, the writer ideally is writing towards a genre and writing towards an audience, but at the same time, I find it very infrequent that an audience will say, no, this book isn't this genre because I say so. Generally the writer puts it in a genre, it gets picked into the genre for whatever reason, and that's where it ends up being seen and read at. Um, um, I would find it very odd if an audience just came up and said, no, this book isn't X, it's this. And that's what we say, so that's what it is. It's like, that's not how it works. But at the same time, since the authors are writing towards an audience, ideally, because if you want it read, you want to write it for someone to read it. Then yeah, you kind of have to write it for whatever genre you think the audience will want to read. Not necessarily saying I have a certain specific audience in mind, more that people who like X, Y, and Z should like these books.
Mm-hmm. What would your advice be to someone who wanted to write in the reverse harem genre?
Read up on it. Master your characterizations, because if your characters all sound the same, it's going to be very flat. And make sure that you're writing for the age range that you want. You don't want to write something that's really YA and then put a bunch of steamy scenes in it. That doesn't make sense. So it's kind of like, you got to write, it's not to write what you know so much as write what makes sense. Because even though reverse harem doesn't necessarily make sense to our modern brains, with the way society is right now, who knows in the future, but it's got to make sense regardless. You can't just throw things together that these kids are 20 something, but they act like they're 15, and then all of a sudden they do stuff that only 20 something do that 15-year-olds shouldn't be doing. It doesn't make sense. So it's got to meld, it's got to work together. But the important thing is characterization. You got to make your characters act and talk like the ages that they are, and act and talk like the different personalities that they are, rather than just having them all being the same person, so to speak, and you're just changing the dialogue tag.
Is reverse for reverse harem stories? They obviously have this element of romance to them too, right? And so, kind of the idea is they say right to show not tell kind of idea, and but you do have to set these things up a little bit because it does go from point A to point B a bit. Was that kind of a challenge right off the bat? What is your opinion on the idea of setting up these the more sexual tension scenes and the romance elements of it? Did that come kind of easy because of the characters you created in the story? Did it meld together like that, or was that a challenge in terms of the writing process?
It's a challenge, but it's one I accepted. Excuse me, I had a hiccup there. Accepted gladly. I enjoy writing the different character interactions and things, and like with the pack, that one, the character, her harem ends up being 5 quints. That's definitely something you got to dance around. You can't just have her with all the guys at once because they're brothers, and that's a little weird. I mean, like that's kind of like, it's kind of like, I mean, twins is a big trope that a lot of people like to read about. I just kind of multiplied that just a little bit because I thought, well, they're wolf shifters, they should have litters, right? Because that makes sense,
right?
Because that's where my brain went.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're like, there's a scene in there where she's finding out all these guys are brothers and they're all born the same age. She's like, wait, Quint, so you guys all have the same birthday? And they're like, well, yeah, that tends to happen with Quints. Because she can't wrap her mind around the fact that all these guys are the same age. Because that's just kind of a fun little thing that I threw in there for that. But yeah, I like taking the challenges on and writing them and getting into the character's mindset and everything.
Is there a line that you won't cross in terms of like oversexing it or anything like that? Is there do you draw a line for yourself, or you just go with wherever the characters and story take you?
I try to keep it relevant to the story, but oversexing. What's that? And it sounds weird. My mom does most of my editing for me. It sounds weird, but she like she separates the fact that I'm her daughter and the fact that I'm an author. So she's able to read these stories and not be like, oh my God, my daughter just wrote that. You know, she's read everything I've written, whether she read it or not. It's just, you know, at first it weirded me out a bit because it's like, oh my God, my mom is reading this thing that I wrote this really, 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 really graphic. And then I was like, oh, she corrected my grammar in this little sentence in this really, really graphic scene. Okay. You know, I mean, it is something, you know, some people are really skeeved out by their families reading it. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever, if that's what you want to read, then okay, you know, that's what I enjoy writing. So have at it.
Do you find that audiences will call out when they can? Do you feel like audiences sense that when somebody's holding back or somebody is kind of towing a line because that they don't want to, whatever reason, maybe it's a personal reason, maybe it's a religious reason, maybe whatever the reason is, do you feel like audiences can sense that, and especially in like the reverse harem genre?
They might be able to. I don't know, because I tend to read stuff that's fast burn and high heat, meaning there's sex pretty early on, and it happens pretty often. I like to read that, and that's what I tend to write. But a lot of the people who ask for things in the genre groups, they'll say, I'm looking for slow burn or I'm looking for medium heat. They'll say what they're looking for, so the recommendations they get aren't too far off from what they want. Whether or not someone might be able to tell that I threw in an extraneous scene that wasn't necessary, I haven't had anyone tell me that yet. I mean, some people have said, you know, that there's reviews for reverse harem that's across the board, to people saying like, this doesn't make any sense for them being with all these guys. Like, there's no, your brain thinks it doesn't make sense because of the society that we live in currently. You know, the story, it makes sense. So it's a taste thing, I think. And some people just don't have that taste, and then they still try to read it and they get upset because it doesn't fit what they want.
Yeah.
And, you know, and some of the reviews you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, because like, okay, this person just clearly does not like reverse harem or does not like paranormal romance. So why are they even reading it?
JD made the comment while you're talking about your mom, referring to the editing.
It's more line edits, really. Making sure I don't like swap tenses in the middle of everything, you know. She's never actually said that to me in particular yet. You know, my scenes seem to be sufficient on the amount of penis in them. So,
well, I would hope so if you're writing
Mom's not complaining.
I would hope so if you're writing a male to male story. Too.
Yeah, those scenes have plenty of penis in them. Okay.
What are some like cool characteristics you like to give your characters? What are some things you like to do to define them that, you know, your audience would recognize as yours?
My characters all end up with tattoos or piercings or both of some sort. It seems like almost all of them, because I've got a bunch myself. I've got like 40 something tattoos and a bunch of piercings, and it's like it's just something I enjoy. So I just throw it in there for the characters. You know, they have different ones. You know, like in Pact with the Pack, Cherry ends up getting a tattoo that's relevant to her personal life and makes sense for her. But in Dealing with Demons, Lena has a bunch of Eldritch tattoos because she's a witch. So hers are more functional because she uses them to focus her magic, as opposed to like Cherry, hers is just symbolic for herself.
That's awesome. So, I mean, so this show's 21 grams, and for people who don't know what 21 grams is significant for, it's what they say is the weight of the soul. And I'm curious for you, how deeply you invest your soul into what you create. Is there? Do you feel like without that passion that your stories would fall flat, or do you feel like
definitely? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got to be full in on a story. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. If I'm not into it, how do I expect the readers to get into it? You know,
yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. If it's not something I would want to read, if it's not something I'm passionate about reading and getting out there, why would a reader care?
Mm-hmm. Have you had a time in your life when your creativity was dormant though, or do you feel like you've always been a creative person?
Oh, I could show you screenshots of my little goal trackers from StoryArt, and you can see the dormant periods where the tracker is like.
Well, those are just days. I'm talking like years where you didn't think about it.
I have had periods where, especially because I'm also bipolar, and so sometimes if the depression hits really hard and you can't get to the doctor right away, there's going to be periods where you can't write because everything sucks, But at the same time, you'll have periods where everything's like bam, bam, bam. You're really knocking it out because you're on a little manic spree or whatever. And then there's in between times where you use your natural creativity, the kind of like zero balance to write from. And I think that is what helps, is being able to write even in the not so manic times. Because if I was only writing when I was manic, I just would not take my meds. My husband would divorce me, and then I'd be depressed and I wouldn't write. So there you go.
And we wouldn't have the great stories that we have now.
Right.
I mean, so how about for the reverse? Is there times when the creativity comes so fast that you almost have to step back a little bit and kind of slow it down, or do you just embrace it and just run with it as fast as you can?
Oh, well, there's times where I have to say, "Oh, dang it, it's time to leave for work. I guess I have to stop writing, this spree that I'm on or something."
One more line, right?
Right. If I could just get these words out before I have to go.
End of chapter.
Right. Luckily, I can usually find my groove again the next morning when I wake up and it's still there. Usually, not always, but it's a work-life balance, just like there is with any job. You gotta know when to sit back and say, okay, I'm a little too deep into this right now. I need to kind of back off it a little bit. And you gotta know when to, okay, I gotta dive deeper into it because I'm not getting the vibe that I need to out of this scene or this chapter or whatever.
I know the answer to this question, and I think a lot of people who will watch this probably know the answer to this question. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
I'm a plantser. I will kind of get the general idea going and maybe kind of thought bubble out the chapters, and then I just get in front of a blank screen and write. I don't generally plot the whole thing out and outline the entire thing because that's just not my thought process. It's not how I work. I find myself feeling more constricted and finding the story feeling more stilted when I try to plan it instead of letting it happen organically.
How much does genre play a part in planning for you? Is that why you are more of a planter than you probably would be otherwise? Is because you're trying to write toward a genre, keep in line with a genre trope or a genre in specifics?
It definitely plays a part, especially the dystopian sci-fi series. The abnormal series tends to go a lot slower for me because I'm planning more. I still basically kind of wing it through there, but I am planning more with that because it's a longer drawn out series and it's got to mesh together better. The shorter ones, the trilogies, they're shorter lived, so they don't have as long of a duration that I have to carry the story through, so I don't have to think about them as much. I mean, you still have to think about it because you're still planning a series, but at the same time, you can kind of let it go a little bit. I mean, if you knew how much pantsing I did with the Hell on Earth series, that was hilarious because there was something I didn't even know about one of the characters until someone said, you could do so. You're going to do something with so-and-so. I have a feeling so-and-so is going to be important in this. I'm like, oh yeah, I did put them in a few scenes. I guess I need to figure out what they're going to do. It's just, you just go with it. That's my method. And that's how it works for me. I thought this worked for every author, obviously. Otherwise there wouldn't be planners and pantsers and plantsers and what have you. But
I contend that most people, though, when they get further in their career, that they do go toward the middle a little bit more. I think I'm finding more and more if you're somebody who's written quite a bit, you're kind of on the fence or in the middle. I mean, usually if you're a plotter, you're a hardcore plotter and you stay a hardcore plotter. But if you're a pantser, you kind of drift a little bit into that middle and that.
You get to where you have deadlines and you have to figure out what you're going to do in a certain time frame. And so you kind of, it necessitates a little bit of planning, just a little.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you working on right now that we can look forward to and get excited about?
Right now, you'll be able to find one of my novellas. It's called A Hunter Hunted. It is actually set in the world of my reverse harem paranormal romances, but it's a male romance. It is going to be in the Fated and Claimed box set, which is available for pre-order. It'll come out December 1st. And then I'm going to start on a trilogy of, again, paranormal reverse harem that's going to be centered around shifter vampires, but it's not going to be like the entire harem is one kind of paranormal creature. There's going to be different ones, and they're going to have different interactions. There'll be a human in the harem, some dude who's like, "Whoa, what is all this?" So it's going to be different in a way from some of the ones I've done. Again, like I said before, I'm going to try to target more tropes and go for what the people are wanting to read. We'll see how it works out. I'm planning a little more with this one, but it's because I haven't actually gotten started on it yet. So I haven't, I've made the covers up, and I've got one book up for pre-order, and I've got like 700 words or something into it, but I haven't really delved into it deep enough to feel the characters yet.
Are you planning on visiting the abnormal universe at some point again? I know you talked about it.
Mandy's got book 3. She's got that one. Book 4 is kind of in the works. I may have to scrap it and start over. I don't know. I'm kind of like, it's one of those, I got frustrated with it and put it off to the side because book 3 isn't even, through edits or anything yet. So I'm going to go back to it, revisit it, and say, okay, what have I written? What I need to rejigger here? It's getting more complicated because the characters are getting older. They're having kids. Things are happening in the world, and it's getting a little more involved, and I need to turn my brain off from the paranormal and turn it on to the dystopian, and getting my brains rejiggered to that is getting to be a little difficult at the moment. I will obviously go back to it, but right now I'm working on these couple things here before I go back to that and get into it more.
JD has a really great question. If in 2022 you made an AJ time capsule to open in 50 years, what would people find?
A lot of smut that I wrote.
Smut that you had to cut, or smut on its own?
I don't bother cutting it. What?
Well, I mean,
why?
Well, no, I mean,
Just kidding.
From the stories that you published, you do. I mean, you do have to make hard choices sometimes, where you cut stuff that you don't.
Right. But no.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean because you crossed the line or anything like that. No.
It'd probably be stuff like that. It'd be random stuff. There'd be like Baby Yoda and Eeyore in there, and like. Speaking of, JD will love this.
Yes, I was. Oh, nice.
I'm sitting with penises right behind my head here. Okay, I'm gonna throw a few of those in the time capsule.
Does your prized possession that you just showed me off camera beforehand, is that going to go in there, or are you going to hold on to Baby Yoda?
Oh no, that one's going into the casket with me right here.
That's going to be what you lay your head on.
There you go.
That's awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. As always, it's always awesome to catch up with you and talk to you about stuff. And I really appreciate you giving us some insight to genre, because genre is such a tricky thing for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things, and you kind of by happenstance, even in your own admission, kind of fell into it and found it. And that's pretty cool, though, right? I mean, like you said, you got fangirled, so that's pretty awesome.
Right.
I mean, that's what we all hope for
level.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. She's not a stalker, though, fangirl, right?
No, not yet. I haven't gotten that level yet. We'll see. Maybe 2022. Maybe my stalker will put part of me in the time capsule for 50 years from now.
Ooh. Let's hope not. Well, AJ, thank you so much. I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better person to start this whole series off again.
Well, thank
So
you.
I really appreciate it. And tell everybody real quickly. Well, you got time, so tell everybody where they can find you and where they can get everything that you're putting out there. If you do you have anything on audio, or is it all paper? Is it all paper
Abnormal
copy?
is on audio. I don't have anything else on audio. It's because I do everything myself aside from the abnormal stories. So I can't really afford a narrator, and I don't have the time to sit there. I mean, yeah, I have nothing in the morning, but I'm writing at that time. I don't feel comfortable enough narrating my own stuff. I get really like weirded out. Say I feel more self conscious reading my own stuff than other people's. It's weird. But ajmullican.com, facebook.com/AJ Mullican author, Facebook groups, Mullican's Maniacs, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, AJ Mullican. Look me up on Amazon. I'm the only AJ Mullican. If you search it, you'll find me. That's kind of where you can find me.
Awesome.
Everywhere.
Yeah, go check it out, and go check out the website too, because she's got some really cool things she does on her website. So, go check that out, and we'll be back next week. We got another. I've got another author lined up. Actually, Glenn Dahlgren will be our guest next week. So
another skew, or he was a skew. I don't think he is anymore.
No, he's with.
Yeah, the pandemic kind of jacked up a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he just released a new book, in his second book in his series. So he's going to be with us to talk about world building and creating. So I'm real excited about that next week. And till then, it's always time to go indie now. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.